Hey everybody, Detective Fun Guy here. We're back with another genestealer cult painted tutorial. Reason why I'm doing genestealer cult again is because, like a recent update and I just want to. So, for today we're going to paint the acolyte hybrids for the genestealer cults. For this is an acolyte hybrid. We're also going to show you many details on the other ones as well, but for right now we're going to focus on this dude. So, we're going to start base coating the armor of the genestealer cults. So what we're going to do, in the paint scheme of Twisted Helix, but feel free to paint your miniatures however you wish. For the base coat, we're going to use Incubi Darkness. Now, Incubi Darkness is essentially a really dark green that we're going to use all over the frame. Thin it down a little bit. So, basically what we're going to do is we're going to take two thin coats. You might need like two thin coats just all over the armor. Try not to get on any other details, but don't worry, we're going to base coat those here in a minute eventually. Alright, with the Incubi Darkness now base coated, we normally use a shade, but I'm not gonna because I want the natural highlights of the armor to show through. So for this, we're gonna do another dry brush with the makeup brush. We're gonna use Acolyte Green. So we're gonna use Acolyte Green is essentially like a really dark emerald, basically. So what we're gonna do, take some Acolyte Green, put it on our dry brush like so. I still call it a dry brush because that's what the technique we're using. Wipe off most of the paint on the brush, and just make sure there's not very much left. So basically, what we're going to do is that all over the armor where we base coated, like if there's shoulder knee pads like right here, just dry brush it with Acolyte Green for right now. And don't worry if you get on any of the details of the miniature, we're going to paint those over, we're going to paint over them later. Alright, that's Acolyte Green applied. Alright, now, this is the Acolyte Green dry brush now applied. Now you may notice it is lacking detail, so we are going to add a wash into the recesses just so we can get the highlight more noticeable. So for this, we're basically just going to use a black wash. Let me make sure I find the right one. Here it is. We're going to use Nolan oil. So what we're going to do, shake up the Nolan oil like so. We are going to thin this down a little bit so that way it doesn't overdarken the Acolyte Green that we done earlier. So what we're going to do, take some Nolan oil, put on a palette like so. Basically what we're going to do is going to thin this down a little bit, so about half. The reason why is that we don't over darken the green that we just did. So what we're going to do, just apply this this diluted wash all over the green parts. And just repeat this all over the miniature. You can grab a little bit more, a little bit, so that way it's still diluted but not as much, so that way you can still look for the detail to get the detail you're looking for. Alright, and that's the Nolan oil applied. Alright, with the armor now shaded, we're now going to re-highlight it back up to a little more bright. So for this, we're going to go back to Cyberite Green. Or Acolyte Green. I can't really remember because it's been a while, but yes. So, we're going to take our dry brush right here, take some Cyberite Green. We're not going to go too heavy on this. All we're going to do is we're going to start highlighting it gently so that way it catches the raised areas but doesn't soak into the recesses. Watch this. So, as you can see here, just gentle strokes. As you can see, it's picking up the raised details, but it's not like overclogging where we applied the shade earlier. So that way, it's actually looking nice, like for the finished product. So what we're going to do, finished product as in the end of the project. Now I'm not sponsoring anything. Alright, and that's the armor done. And now for the clothing, we're just going to apply a base coat of Incubi Darkness. And by clothing, basically wherever there's clothing. So not really right here on the carapace, just mainly the pants. Try not to hit the armor, but don't worry, if you do, you can just re-highlight and do it all later. Might need 2 thin coats, but don't worry if you do. Don't worry, it will be really worth the effort. Just take your time. All right, that's the clothing base coated. And now for the carapace of the acolyte, we're going to use Contour Blue. So basically what we're going to do is basically what I've been doing for carapace for the last couple of times. Basically, just, you know, the standard dark blue recipe. They do have different carapace colors, but I'm just going with the classic one because I just like the look of it with twisted helix. So what we're going to do, basically this model has a little bit of carapace, like all over his arms. Some acolytes will have different ones, but don't worry, just take your time. And also you can look in the box art to see where the carapace is, and they will really help you guide through it. Alright, now we're going to paint the bio dagger. The bio dagger is basically this little dagger right here. They have regular knives, but you know, we're just going to use the dagger. For this, we're going to use a base coat of Incubi Darkness. This is essentially just a dark green color again. Okay, take this. Take some Incubi Darkness, and basically just base coat. Oh, I should thin it down a little bit. Oops. But don't worry, thank God this is a morely thin paint. And do base coat this all over the bio dagger. Alright, that's the bio dagger base coated. Alright, we're going to base coat the pistol that he has. If you have him with the flamer, you can look up different tutorials on that, but I'm just going to leave him right here for this one. So for the gun, or basically the cover of it, we're going to use a Baden Black. So what we're going to do, take some of the Baden Black. So what we're going to do, base coat the cover of the pistol with this. If you get on any other details, don't worry, we can just base coat over those later. Just thin this down a little bit. And also, while we have the black out, you can also, if you want, but we can also base coat the claws at this stage. If you want, but you can just apply them after, it doesn't really matter. And also, before I forget, there's also these little black tubes right here on his armor right here. And also the toe claws as well. Now to base coat some of the demolition charges which you see on the model. Basically, it's these little things right here on his back. So for like this, we're going to use a base coat of corn red. You could paint the charges however you want. I'm just painting them red because it's an explosive charge, of course. Take some corn red. I'm just using my fine brush so that way I don't get on any other details. Alright, and that's the red done. And for the brown leather parts, we're going to use Thondia Brown. So what we're going to do, it's basically on the brown parts of the model. Basically what I mean by that is that we're going to grab our fine brush again. There's also some straps right here on the model's arms, like here where it meets the carapace. Just base coat those carefully with Thondia Brown. Going to dollop, and we do need to thin it down a little bit. You could, of course, use whatever brown you have. You can use Mournfang brown or Rhinox hide. I'm just using a medium brown so that way it doesn't overdark. It doesn't look too dark on the miniature. And while we have the Thondia brown, we're also going to base coat this little gun holster right here and the little strap that it goes on. And now we can finally start base coating the skin. So for the skin, we're going to use Demonette hide. So basically what we're going to do, this is basically a pale purple gray. All we're going to do, take some Demonette hide, put it on my palette like so, and just thin it down a little bit. There we go. So what we're going to do is simple. So if you look right here, we're basically going to base coat all the flesh parts. So say the hands, feet, hands, and of course the head as well. So there are also some carapace that I painted earlier, which are on his head. Just be careful to avoid that. That's all. Might require it will require two thin coats, but don't worry. Just take your time, and it'll be really worth the effort. Alright, now to start base coating the metallics. So for all the silver, we're going to use Leadbelcher. So, check out the paint like so. So for a metallic paint, you do need to thin it down, but not too much, or else you'll lose the metallic effect. So, what we're going to do, just a dab, just a smidge of water, just a smidge. There we go. Perfect. See, just a smidge. So what we're going to do, base coat all the silver details. There's not very much silver on the Genestealer Cults models for right now. But also, if you want, you can also paint the grill of this light right here, and we can just paint the yellow over it later. Or the whole light in silver if you want. But watch this. So basically what we're going to do, base coat the barrel of the pistol, the magazine right here. You can also paint the magazine a different color if you want. And also the chain right here, or the little rings right here on his bio dagger. And also this little back part of it right here. Alright, and that's all the silver base coated. And now for the bronze on the miniature, we're going to use Balthazar Gold. What we're going to do, take some Balthazar Gold, put it right here. I did check out the paint, yes I did. It does separate sometime, but don't worry, it'll be fine. So for this, basically the bronze on the miniature is simple. Just these cult symbols you'll see on the miniatures. Just paint those with Balthazar Gold. Alright, that's the bronze base coated. Alright, now time for the shading. Basically for the shading, we're basically going to apply most of the majority of the stuff with Nuln Oil. So basically, you can do this for the carapace, the red, the brown, the biodagger, the claws, the silver, even the bronze. However, we're going to leave the purple alone because we're going to use a purple wash for that later. Check up the Nuln Oil. What we're going to do, take some Nuln Oil, put it on our palette. Basically what we're going to do is we're not going to thin this down at all. We're basically just going to apply a nice even wash coat all over where we base coated earlier. So the carapace, the red, and of course the carapace down here, but also the brown. You could of course use Agric Earthshade on the brown instead, but I'm just using Nuln Oil. Oh, and also the pants too. But I'm just using Nuln Oil because it's pretty much a universal shade that can go on anything. So, now with the now applied, we're now going to apply a purple wash for the ones that want to be purple. So we're going to use Druchii Violet. And also, we're going to apply the Druchii Violet all over the bronze because there's a really cool bronze recipe I do. Well, bronze and copper, but yes. Shake up the Druchii Violet. Basically, what we're going to do, take some Druchii Violet, get a little bit on your brush, build a little dollop or puddle, just a little bit, because there's not too much. So basically, we're going to base coat we're going to shade this all over the purple details. So basically, just the skin and the bronze. You may be asking, well, why are you using purple for the bronze? Well, the being is because if you look at copper or bronze, sometimes they'll have a purple warping effect, but it also makes it look like worn out bronze, which is why I prefer this over bronze. So what we're going to do, so for look over the bronze, base coat that with Druchii Violet. See, it looks more like a copperish bronze now. Just make sure you don't add too much. And of course, on to shade the head as well, and the face. Now it's time to start the highlights. So for this, we're going to go to Cyberite Green. We're going to highlight some parts of the dagger and the armor. I know we finished with the armor earlier, but just to add a little more extra detail for it. So take the Cyberite Green. We are going to thin it down a little bit. Basically, base coat these little bumps on the bio dagger first. And basically, look where all the edges are on the armor, and we're going to paint over those with the solid Cyberite Green. Not all over, just on some parts of the lines of the armor to add a little more contrast or depth. Use the edge of your brush, just take nice, gentle strokes, but build it up very gently and slowly. Just gentle. But when you come to the front part, basically you just want to do this top part right here. For the next parts of the highlights, we're going to return back to Acolyte Green. We're basically going to highlight some raised details on the pants. So basically, take some Acolyte Green. Basically, all there is if you look right here, we're basically just going to do this. Thin it down a little bit, just so you be sure. Paint some of the raised wrinkles on the pants. You don't have to do this all over the model, because there's not very much wrinkle on it. But just some subtle parts of it right here and there. That's all. All right, that's the pants highlighted. And now, after the we're gonna highlight the brown. For this, we're gonna use Mournfang Brown. So, take some Mournfang Brown. You could of course use other types of brown or other drab colors. Like a darker brown, like Rhinox hide, but I just want to use Mournfang Brown for a slightly brighter finish. Basically, take the edge of your brush, make sure it's a fine tip, and if you look right here, just gently drag your brush on the edges of the gun holster, so that way the Mournfang Brown will go on the edges, but it won't overload the model. See? As you can see here, just gentle strokes. Just take your time. And also for the straps, just on the straps too. Basically wherever you see straps, not on the carapace over there, but still, we're right here. Just be very careful. And for the bio dagger, we're basically going to go back to Acolyte Green once again. The reason being is because it's majority of the color of what the bio dagger is supposed to be. So what we're going to do, we're basically going to go on the lighter, if we're going to go to a wide edge right here, we're going to make a wide highlight because we're going to edge highlight it later with another fine detail. There we go. Now we're going to finish the blade off with Cyberite Green. Take some Cyberite Green. What we're just going to do is just running along the edge right here. All that is right there. And that's the Bio Dagger done. And now finally for the skin. For this we're going to use Slanesh Gray. We're going to take some Slanesh Gray. Basically, take some Slanesh Gray, like I said. Put it on the table of our palette. Thin it down. I'm still using my fine brush because the face does have details that are kind of subtle and a little easy to paint over. Just gentle strokes. Basically go over the head, and for when you go to these parts of the head, like the ridges, I gotta look very carefully for a second. So look right here, avoid the carapace, look for the raised areas on the brow, and just look for all the raised details, but just paint those over. And after the Slanesh Gray is dry, there is some parts we painted over, which is going to happen no matter what. So basically, we're going to go back to Druchii Violet. Basically, what we're going to do is shake up, and we're going to basically just reshade the recesses. So what we're going to do, take some Druchii Violet, fine brush, we're going to do recess shade. What it means is that if you look at the recesses right here, the fingers, which are overloaded, we're basically going to take this brush and pop some in the recesses. So what we're going to do. Yeah, just reshade the recesses of the miniature. Example, like this part right here. Dampen the brush. Oh, and also, before I forget, there's also a way there's also the little head part that's supposed to be a little bit darker than the rest. We're gonna thin down the Druchii Violet, and we're gonna apply a glaze all over the top of the head, not the face, just the top of the head. And just reapply the shade into the recesses. In between the toes. There we go. That's the shade applied. And now for the tongue, before I forget, I have to pause the video, we're going to use Spellbound Fuchsia. So what we're going to do, take some Spellbound Fuchsia. It's a squeeze bottle, so squeeze some out on the table. What we're going to do is we're going to use this on the tongue. We're going to do just very, very carefully, just painting the tongue. There we go, that's the tongue painted. And now we're going to dot the eyes in with Phalanx Yellow. So what we're going to do, take some Phalanx Yellow. What we're going to do, just take some onto the tip of our brush, just the very, very tip. Twist the brush so you get a fine tip on it. And just dot in the eyes. There we go, and that's the eyes painted. All right, and one last detail before I forget. Well, of course, I already forgotten some pieces. We're going to start highlighting the metallics. So for this, we're going to start off with the silver. For this, we use Stormhost Silver. This is basically a very, very bright silver. So what we're going to do, take some Stormhost Silver. We're not going to thin this down. We're basically just going to apply this all over the other silver details, like right here. Including the gun magazine, and basically the muzzle as well. And also for the rings on the weapon he's holding. And also the back of it. There we go. And finally, for the bronze, we're going to use Brass Scorpion. So what we're going to do, I'm going to take the Brass Scorpion and basically just apply it all over the bronze areas. So what we're going to do, take some Brass Scorpion. For the Druchii Eye Violet recipe I did, basically all we're going to do is going to highlight the spine parts of the cult symbol. So right here, just go along the edges. You can also go around the other parts right here to give it a nice little bronze finish to it. That's all. And don't forget about this one on the inside. And that's the metallics done. And now we're going to highlight the carapace. For this, we're going to use a subtle highlight of Calidor Sky. So, check out the Calidor Sky. Basically, what we're going to do is basically take some Calidor Sky, put it on the palette. We're going to not want too much, just thin it down just like this. You want very little, and we're just going to highlight on the edges of the carapace, like so. So if you look right here, basically, if you get a little bit, I'm just getting more paint just in case. All right, with those details done, this is the Genestealer Cult Acolyte Hybrid done. So, this concludes this tutorial on the Acolytes. There are some different weapons on the Acolytes, such as the saw and the flesh whip and the bone sword. But don't worry, you can look up on other tutorials for those. I just wanted to show off how you can paint the Acolytes. And of course, feel free to paint your miniatures however you wish. And just so you know, this is just my method. I really hope you enjoyed this tutorial. Happy painting! Bye-bye!